Hi there guys, welcome back to Dad Plays Stuff and another Daemon X Machina video, and today we're back with another outer challenge. So before we get into that, please leave a like, a comment and subscribe. So today in the outer challenge, we're up against Dreadnought. Now I'm not gonna lie, this boss I thought was gonna be something I could just roll over and kill him relatively easily. But as an outer, it turns out that Dreadnought is actually a little bit more challenging than the likes of Bolt, which genuinely surprised me. His armor plating and lack of easily accessible weak points make him a lot more difficult to take on as an outer than you would initially think. Now the basic strategy of this fight remains the same. Stay elevated above a certain height, and for the most part he can't touch you. You do have, unfortunately, the initial challenge of his front-mounted machine guns. Whenever he emerges from the ground, he's more often than not going to be facing you. These machine guns let out a volley, and against an arsenal, not a problem. Against an outer, they can easily deal quite a lot of damage quite quickly by knocking you out of the sky and then letting you hit the ground. There's also the chance that he could hit you and then charge into you, which then means even more damage. So the best strategy is to kind of keep moving, bobbing and weaving, essentially, whilst staying above his height. Now, by no means is this going to be a quick fight. His health pool is fairly decent, on top of the fact that you have very limited amount of weak points to hit. The two major ones to focus on, at least in the beginning, are the two mounted onto his back. They're always the most easily accessible, however, due to the fact you're quite slow in comparison to what you would be if you were in a proper arsenal, you are going to have to basically use the times when he's either just finished charging or just came out of the ground to attack these back weak points. It's a very limited window, and as I said, it's going to be a long fight. Now I'm going to speed up the fight a little bit just so that we can get through this relatively quickly. The overall fight was about 9 minutes, and a lot of that is me just waiting on him surfacing again so I can shoot him. Now, something I would heavily recommend is when he dives under the ground, use that time to basically move around. He has the two different types of coming out of the ground. There's obviously the one where he just launches himself straight up in the air, but there's also the one where he'll just suddenly fly across the map. You need to be moving in order to avoid those. It's pretty damn imperative because, as you see, and at one point during this fight, I did get hit by it and it took 2 of my health bars away. Now, if I was up high enough, it would probably kill me right off the bat, just because of how sudden and violent the attack is. So I definitely recommend not staying still for too long and watching the radar for where he's going to come out of the ground next. Now, out of all the fights so far, I think this is very close to the Nightmare one. I'm not sure which one really pips the post, and whether I'm better at flying around as an outer now because of the Nightmare fight, and thus this fight's easier as a result. I feel this fight should, and it definitely feels longer and harder, but I'm not entirely certain of it. It's that kind of way where I remember back when we first started playing the game, and now when I fight bosses, for the most part I find them really easily. It's that kind of power creep. You don't know if it's because you're better at the game or if just the boss isn't difficult. Either way, it's definitely one of the harder ones. Not quite as annoying as Nightmare, but definitely more tedious. So now we're approaching the fractal stage. The best thing to do is to basically wait for the boss to cast his laser cannon. It's when he's most vulnerable, it's also when he's most dangerous. Don't get hit by the cannon. At this point, he's going to start firing at you and he will track you as he moves. However, he will also, because he's tracking you, leave the cores at the front of his cannon area incredibly vulnerable. Use this opportunity to basically strafe to the left or the right of him and shoot at the respective core. Once he stops casting his laser cannon, you can also circle around to the other side of the core, where there's one near towards his underbelly. At this point, I would also heavily recommend, after he starts basically regaining his composure and turning back to face you, fly up, because if you get charged in this state, he's probably going to kill you just by sheer fall damage, because the force of his charges seems to be higher at this point. The other mechanic from this phase that does matter is that he will occasionally raise his body up in the air and do a kind of roar. At this point, there'll be a load of explosions of basically acid. If you get hit by this, it's more damage, there's the potential of fall damage, so be aware of your surroundings. Keep an eye out for the exploding acid bombs and just circle around them, and then rinse, repeat. When he uses laser cannon, use that opportunity to attack the cores. There is also adds spawning throughout the fight. I would recommend killing them because they're just going to provide extra damage, extra things to shoot at you. They're really easy to kill. They literally die in one hit from your blitz attack. So don't neglect the adds. When you're an outer, it is very important not to neglect the adds unless they're super slow and you're moving away from them constantly. In this fight, the arena is quite small, so I would definitely recommend taking them out. So let's summarise. The most important things to do: stay above his body, especially in any phase where he is going to be charging. When and if he goes under the ground, keep an eye on the radar for figuring out where he's coming from, and keep moving to avoid getting hit by any charges straight out of the ground. The front of his body has machine guns, so avoid it during phase 1, and during phase 2 use the opportunities with his strafing laser cannon to attack the front cores. In phase 1, attack the back of them, because they are the only weak point that you've got a good chance of hitting. Throughout the fight, kill any adds that spawn, and avoid any acid explosions that you see during it. If you keep up with these kind of tips and tricks, you're going to be able to do this fight fairly easily. He's not that difficult, but in comparison to some of the other ones, he definitely is far more difficult than he would be if you were in an arsenal, since he is probably the weakest boss you can come up against, nearly. So that was the Outer Dreadnought challenge. Thank you very much for watching, guys. If you enjoyed content like this and want to see more of it in the future, please leave a like, a comment and subscribe. And I can't stress enough how much each one of those matters on every one of my videos. I really appreciate when you guys take the time to do one or all of the above. And we'll catch you next time with the next video. See you later.